My name is Robin Crosby. You may have seen me earlier. I'm a business development manager at Layton in their Canada division. And we are a consulting company that helps businesses with solutions to thrive through innovation funding. Businesses are created for several reasons, amongst which profit, creating value for shareholders, and benefiting lives are key. These executives on this panel are preoccupied with improving lives and situations. So I've got some questions for each of the panelists. What I'd like to do is stick to the order in which you introduce yourself. So if we could have Angel start, please tell us about your business and what you do in your role. All right, Shane, I see you're ready. You're up.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. So Shane Vermele, managing partner and founder of Carbon. We're a sustainable development holding company that essentially looks for proven and profitable businesses that advance our three pillars, which are education, economic development, and resources, which is food, energy, and water. So essentially by providing good business and helping those scale, we can actually clone businesses with the original entrepreneur and take those to areas with unmet demand.
Perfect. All right, Jason. Oh, sorry. I'm missing my notes here. All right, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Robin, and nice to meet you, Shane. My name is Justin Potts. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Avinify, which is a replacement to traditional student loans. We enable healthcare students to finance their education debt-free, no credit score, cosigner, or collateral required. We pair this fairer, more accessible financing with career resources and financial insights to promote upward mobility and career success.
Great. Okay. So Shane and then Jason, what was the impetus of starting your company? And please share the backstory.
For me, it was literally born out of impatience. So I'm not a very patient person. So I started my journey in emerging growth finance 20 years ago. So grew up in Indiana, made my way out to Wall Street. And, after being in an investment bank, I went into venture capital, and that's where I found my love for clean tech and sustainability. And then, so that seed was kind of planted roughly about 17 years ago. And it got to the point in about 2018 where I just got fed up with seeing headlines and deal announcements of another payments company getting $100 million in funding, and honestly, what I call a lot of nonsensical things that really don't advance humanity or actually will matter in about 30 years from now. So I, out of necessity, and I had to create something that addressed a lot of the problems I've seen. We're structured as a holding company because I don't fully believe in the fund model. We take a long-term view. We're focused on creating generational wealth. So how do we do that? We have to look through a wider lens and coming up with a better return model than just waiting for businesses to be bought and sold or go public. So we did that. And so my backstory is really about, trying to find a way to elevate the common man, or person, I should say, by really finding a way for them to innovate for themselves. And so by cloning businesses that actually are already working and taking those best practices, we can spread those around the world and find a bench of talented local entrepreneurs that can start those businesses for themselves. So that's essentially what we do, is we work with solution providers around our pillars, really look at their replication ability that address massive consistent problems across regions, and clone those businesses through an ecosystem of entrepreneurial talent worldwide.
Got it. All right, Justin.
Yeah, so my co-founder, Tim O'Sheridan, and I were both recently students ourselves. And we experienced kind of the impact of student loans firsthand, seeing ourselves and our friends go through the process. And what we found was that there were really two main problems that existed in the student loan industry today. The first being access to capital, and the second being outcomes as a result of receiving that capital. 95% of student loans on the market today require that credit score or cosigner, despite only 20% of young people having one. And when you look at low-income neighborhoods, only half of those consumers can be accurately underwritten or accurately scored. And so we saw a big opportunity to develop an alternative underwriting model that took into account their future earning potential based on their academic performance. So we can basically underwrite students without using that traditional credit criteria, make it far more accessible for students to attend school and get over the finish line. And on the outcome side, default rates are continuing to rise. Students are paying off their loans well into retirement. In nursing alone, 20% of nurses 50 years or older are still paying off their student loans. And so obviously this is a huge problem that leads to things like delays in home ownership, delays in starting businesses, delays in starting a family. And so we use a unique financial instrument called the income share agreement, similar to coding boot camps, which give tuition credits upfront and defer payments to a percentage of income once they graduate. We do the same thing in healthcare. So students receive that funding up front. They don't pay anything until they're earning more than $30,000 a year. And then over the next 5 years, they'll just share a percentage of their income, usually 5 to 6%. And after that 5-year period, their payments are done, regardless of whether or not they've paid off the original funding amount given. And so it's a far more accessible, affordable, and fair way for students to go and pay for that. And we thought that we could have a huge impact, not only in kind of the student space, but bringing this as a broader financial instrument into the community.
Wow, not until retirement. Okay, Shane, what changes and challenges have you encountered during lockdown?
I've actually found a lot of opportunities. But we had started out our fundraising process about a month and a half prior to COVID. So it didn't really make sense to go knock on family office doors when nobody knew what tomorrow was going to bring. So what we did is we took it on our shoulders to really build out some of the portfolio some more. So because we're not a traditional fund, because we don't have a traditional model. Yes, we do fit in that alternative impact space. We knew that it might help to have some proof points to our business and really show and demonstrate that there are willing entrepreneurs that want to subscribe to this model. They see the growth potential, they see the impact potential. 2, we have an ecosystem that's out there that's actually ready to produce and sign up for some of these businesses. And so we took the time to build out some of the solutions within our portfolio to create a little bit more transparency for investors coming up. We're basically wrapping up some of our documents now. So hopefully within a month or so, we'll be ready to go back into market. I do think that this pandemic has raised a lot of eyebrows and opened some eyes around these issues of not only climate change, pandemics, healthcare, but also just the overall need and the issues we have around some of humanity's biggest problems, whether it's around waste, whether it's around climate, energy, what have you. I think the timing is good because there's more and more articles, and the one thing we can't escape is time, right? And that we are limited by that, and things are happening, they're already put in place. So we have to figure out how to be resilient against the negative effects that will be coming. So that's as a core thesis of what we're doing. I'm by no means here to try to reverse climate change or even think that's possible. I'm here to find solutions that allow us to manage better towards that. And because of all this, in this time, it's been easier to engage with a lot more potential portfolio companies, solutions, ecosystem developers, even potential investors, because everyone's pretty much available sitting at home like we are today. So that's where that's at.
Yes, I've seen a lot of cats on calls recently. It's been fun to see all the pets make their debuts and little ones. Justin, same question. What's been happening during lockdown for you and your company?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been an interesting time to be building an early stage startup. I think Shane touched on a lot of it, right? Learning how to be kind of resilient in these changing times. And I think we're in kind of the unique intersection of both education, helping these new grads get hired, and healthcare, obviously in this pandemic where we have a nationwide and worldwide shortage of healthcare workers. And so something we've been thinking a lot about is not only, how can we set up our new grads for success, but how can we build products to make it easier for students to enter the healthcare field and address this shortage, not only in this global pandemic, but beyond, so that we can be prepared for future ones.
Gotcha. Feel free to take your time too on these questions. Let's do you think it's a good time for people out there thinking about starting a business? A lot of great companies were started during recession, for example, IBM and General Motors. Given the level of uncertainty, though, in this atmosphere, would you recommend to somebody that they pull the trigger and just do it? Justin, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I think startups are such a long game that, I don't think it matters when you start that company. I think you're going to encounter those challenges throughout your life cycle. I think if you can build a successful company in this climate today, you will be set up for even more success down the line. I also think that, earlier this year, there was a lot of slowdown in kind of venture capital and fundraising just because of kind of the economic uncertainty. And so I think that made it hard for a lot of early stage entrepreneurs to raise. And obviously we saw a lot of layoffs happen, not just in early stage startups, but tech companies that are far larger. And so I think the biggest challenge in starting a company during one of these kind of recessions or pandemics is really just that access to capital. And so I think something that I'm excited about seeing is how many people can start companies that are either bootstrapped or profitable from day one. How can we kind of get around the hurdle of needing venture capital to go and build a successful company? I think it also makes the problems that people are experiencing even more clear, right? Whether that's helping them get a job or whether that's helping them, giving them some kind of safety net financially. Anything like that, I think, is really comes to light when we have these broader kind of issues happening. So I think there are going to be a lot of interesting startups that are created today. Obviously, startups have a high rate of failure, so I don't think they'll all last, but I think the ones that do will be even stronger than the ones that were started before.
Got it. Okay, and before I throw to Shane on that, just since I'm in this realm, have you ever taken advantage of government funding where you are? When you talk about bootstrapping and venture capital, has that ever been an option?
Yeah, we haven't done a lot on kind of the government funding side. We've been a pretty scrappy and lean team, so we haven't taken much advantage of venture capital either. Most of our fundraising is done on kind of that debt and fund side that we deploy out to our students. But we're constantly thinking of ways that we can kind of expand our access to capital and lower those rates for students. One thing that we're excited about is launching our social impact fund so that we can fund healthcare students from low income backgrounds, lower those rates, and make it even more accessible for those students to go to nursing school.
Got it. Okay, Shane, should someone start a business? And if not now, when?
I actually think it's the perfect time to do it. And you traditionally see within a downturn, you see a lot of innovation come from that. So I actually wear another hat in addition to running Carbon. So I head up an advisory group at Perkins Coie that works with a lot of our startup clients to essentially scale their business, fundraise. So I'm neck deep in a lot of this activity, both from the investor side and also the entrepreneur side. But typically in these situations, you get a lot of people that either already been laid off or are looking to do their next thing because they're already getting burned out. A lot of budgets are being cut. This is a perfect time to really take that step. However, I would caution jumping into it full-fledged because it's one of those things that there's a couple of hidden secrets I think that first-time entrepreneurs need to be aware about. One is I think you need to be very financially secure to really pull this off and not be overstressed, because when you do take this leap, if you're coming from a corporate world or other type of job, there literally is no overhead and support staff, none of that. All fingers point back to you, so everything is on your shoulders. So you have to be both prepared financially, mentally, and even physically, I'd say, to do this, because it takes a toll. It's literally going to be the hardest job you've ever had. But I think the key to that is you got to find something that you love. I think you need to do your homework to understand the markets that you're operating in, to see where you fit, and if there is an unmet need or a gap in that market that has some economic or some other type of pain point that's readily addressable. I think a lot of people miss those things, and there's a lot of things that just miss business 101, right? Just knowing your customer, understanding the business model, the potential profitability. Yes, you see a lot of Silicon Valley companies launch and basically not really have a profitable business model. I do think that when you have downturns like this, investors are looking for much more cash conservation and profitable, or at least potentially profitable, businesses that actually have a working model that where revenue minus expenses still nets out to something positive eventually. Understanding that there's a period of growth that you want to fuel, That being said, these are all the things you need to be aware of, but I also think it's a perfect time to start building teams because like we're doing here, we can all meet virtually. Yes, it's not that easy to go grab dinner or coffee or something to meet up in person to really go and see if that person's a fit. But you can iterate on Zoom or any type of virtual conferencing and start meeting the right people. There's even great networking apps like Lunch Club that allow you to interface. And I signed up for that weeks ago, but I've already met amazing individuals doing that. So you can kind of specify where you want to go. There's a lot of tools and functionality that's out there right now, especially optimized for an environment like we're in now that help you get back to normal or fill those gaps that you once had that you can't do in this moment.
Thank you. I wrote Lunch Club down. I'll be sure to check that one out.
Sure.
Shane, another one for you. Carbon is a big departure from the world of venture. Share why you decided to create it as a nonprofit and really bite into how does Carbon make money? Is it through its donors or other means?
So that's actually not accurate at all. So Carbon is anything but nonprofit. We are all for profit. We actually only believe in finding extremely profitable endeavors because through profitability, we can actually create long-term viability and sustainability. I personally think a lot what's in the nonprofit model is broken. And it's a common misconception, especially when you have a title of a panel like this, doing well by doing good. The automatic assumption is that, well, you can't make money by doing that. So it has to be donor-based or something philanthropic, which is not the case. So we look at businesses that already have very strong fundamentals that just advance critical needs of humanity. And so a lot of people manage towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a framework that the UN actually created. It's a framework that's designed by 2030. Hopefully we meet all those goals worldwide, but at least it's being adopted by governments, by corporations, by startups, literally everyone. And they're trying to find ways to do that. We don't necessarily just subscribe to that. Our model is actually already built around holistic solutioning of economic, social, and environmental principles. So by addressing those things, we actually optimize and find ways to not put any one of those first. But by doing so, we actually advance all of the 17 goals at once, or at least through this portfolio approach. So we are set up where, people can invest in the Carbon holding company, and then we deploy that into our businesses. The goal, like I said, is we have a core set of companies that's in the portfolio, but we work with them to create anywhere from 10 to 20 different carbon copies of that business. And so it's really thinking about how we take that carbon copy to Guatemala, Nigeria, low-income US, whatever it might be, by different countries and regions. That's how we create a chain of businesses that then kind of come back to feed the mothership.
Got it, the holding company. All right, Justin, Eventify seems lucrative and enduring because A, student loans have to be paid, B, student loans are usually high, 20K and above, or C, student loan debt in America stands at 1.6 trillion. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we, unlike student loans, which make money regardless of how the kind of student performs, we only win when our students win, which we think is a really important shift in the industry to the kind of aligned incentives approach. And so we make money by charging a fee to our investors upfront, and then a percentage of those student repayments, really demonstrating our aligned incentives for the students. And what that does is it kind of puts us in their corner to fight for them, to get raises, to find those most lucrative opportunities for them, compared to lenders that really don't care whether or not you have a job or whether or not you're able to afford your rent payments, because they're going to get their money no matter what. And the idea is that this can lead to better outcomes for everybody, not just us as a company that's generating revenue, the better our students do. But if we can do our jobs right, then the students will actually make more money. We'll be able to help the hospitals and our hiring partners make more money by giving them access to that top talent. And so we think the aligned incentives approach here is really the biggest shift that we're excited about, and can lead to a lot of kind of money-making opportunities where everybody wins, nobody's left behind.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Shane, we've talked about the pandemic, but still sticking on that, the aftermath of the pandemic, Do you think it will present new challenges that we have to focus on, or do you have enough on your plate as it is?
Well, the reality is it's all on our plate, right? Because collectively, as a community of humans, we're all going to face these issues. I do think you're going to see, and you already have it, right? The wealth gap has expanded multifold from this. The education gap has done the same. Environmentally, you're seeing very good proof that I think humans are the virus. So forget about COVID-19. We as people are the most fierce force on the planet to actually degrading our environment, our social and our culture. And I'm hoping actually people take this time to take a good look at themselves and really, make some changes, whether it's around how they conserve, how they treat people, how they open their mind to differences, because it's going to take a lot of that going forward to pull things back together. And hopefully we find that there are things that are much more important to focus on, because again, I go back to this aspect of time. Things around our environment are already set in motion. An interesting fact that I learned over the last 6 weeks or so, 130 million plastic bottles range from our skies over the US right now. So our entire food supply is being inundated with microplastics. And I don't know about you, but my liver and my kidneys aren't meant to process that type of material. So this is going to be ongoing. I think you're seeing extremely strong storms and weather impacts. So in addition to the wealth gaps, the education gaps, Earth will take care of itself, but we're not going to like the effects of it. I can tell you that. So it's really about how we, I think, have to take a different lens on going forward and trying to start really focusing on the future that we want to create. I think that's extremely hard given the political turmoil that we have in this country specifically, but even abroad where we deal, they are shut down. I mean, their version of a quarantine is that you're not allowed out unless there's paperwork saying that you're allowed to leave your house. And many countries have that discipline. We kind of lack that here, which is why you see this sustained spike for a while, right? But I think other countries are also experiencing these dips and troughs again. So it'll be hard to really figure out when and where you can start doing business again as usual. Everything we're doing is basically deemed critical. So if I were to say one thing that we learned from this was, wow, there are things like this can happen that can literally shut down consumer demand and access overnight. And so because of that, we really focus on the things that are deemed essential, regardless of the situation, because it must continue to basically have sustained life.
Yeah. Great points that you bring up there. I know here in Canada, we have just started banning single-use plastics. That will be coming in very soon. So that's what's sweeping us in sustainability these days. A lot of initiatives in that realm, because you're right. We sometimes could be looked at as the virus. All right, Justin, a Bloomberg reporter who wanted to be the best financial reporter in the world attended NYU and spent $150,000 on her MBA. And now she's worried that the value of her MBA is in question. What kind of loan numbers do you have coming through your company's doors, and how much are you able to save?
Yeah, so on average, we're seeing students apply anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 in funding. And right now we're primarily focused on healthcare, which not only has a great ROI on kind of the investment that they put into that education, but great job placement rates and broader kind of impact as well on the healthcare ecosystem. I think a lot of students kind of question that value of their degree just because they have a lot of debt to pay off. But the numbers actually show that a degree in most scenarios is worth it for the student. People who graduate with their bachelor's degree are earning 84% more in lifetime earnings than those with just a high school diploma. And so while there's that initial hump for them to get over and paying off those student loans, I think it is worth it most of the time. I think the biggest thing that really calls into question kind of the value of the degree is that ease of getting a job and then kind of their quality of life afterwards. And so with the traditional student loans where, your entire paycheck, right, half your paycheck might be going to student loans, we envision a world where all of your payments are affordable and flexible. And so it makes it really easy for you to see that value of your degree. And with the aligned incentives approach, we can increase that value by making it easier to get a job and succeed beyond graduation.
Okay, so go to school still. Keep that plan.
Yep.
Okay, somebody mentioned earlier about your physical can even play a role here. So this is just a broad question. How has being an entrepreneur affected your life, your relationships with friends and family, and just things in general? Justin?
Yeah, it's definitely been tough. I think there are different kind of mindsets on this where I think you have the people that bootstrap and they have kind of this profitable lifestyle business that maybe doesn't require as much time, although it does require the same amount of work. And I think it's definitely a noble mission and a hard thing to do to build any company. But I think there are a lot of obligations that you take on, especially when you take on venture capital or when you're in a high growth company where even if it's not kind of work that you're doing day to day, a lot of your mind space is kind of occupied by kind of what you're thinking about or things that you need to do. So I think as an entrepreneur, it's really important to have kind of that support system around you of people that understand what you're doing, people that understand, why it's important to you and what you hope to achieve. And I'm really lucky to have a co-founder that I work with that I've been, friends with for years, that we can both kind of be each other's support networks and build off of each other, and hopefully build something big off of this. I think I left college early, actually. I was only there for a year and a half before I went in to go and work in startups. And so I think there are some experiences that you miss out on if you want to go and take that leap early. But I think it's important to kind of know what you want and know what you want to achieve, and understand that there are going to be sacrifices you have to make along the way. And this is something my co-founder and I talk a lot about, is kind of what is the extent of those sacrifices that you should make. And I think it really just depends on kind of the company you want to build and what you're comfortable with. You can work a 9 to 5 and build something successful. There are people that have done it. You can work 80 hours a week and build something successful. It's really just kind of what you want to put into it and what you hope to get out of it.
Got it. Shane, same question.
It's been kind of challenging. It's been extremely busy from one angle, right? I mean, the days are kind of limitless and they kind of roll into each other, as everyone knows. I've had to force myself to find balance in a way, really trying to unplug at least one full day on the weekend, right? If I'm looking at my phone, it's literally only Instagram or Facebook or something like that. Nothing work related, no emails. Even get frustrated when texts come in. You just need to kind of really find a way to unwind. So I've been doing a lot of nature-oriented things, trying to go out as much as possible. At least I was with hikes, but now it's gotten to the point where I've kind of done everything and gone where I can because I'm not allowed to travel, that's my biggest thing. But I'm trying to, talk to my parents on Zoom, which is new for them. Maybe every week or so, every other week. Relationship wise, I think with friends, it's been kind of awkward because it's all done through text or this. I've hung out with a few people here and there, maybe going to the beach, but dating has definitely been almost impossible. But that's just impossible anyway. So regardless of the situation, doesn't really matter. But all those things, it's hard to find that natural human fit. But I think work-wise too, it's been great for networking because again, people are more accessible. People are actually looking to engage and do new things and find new people that are relevant. So I've seen a lot of appetite for that. So people want to build out their networks and find ways to be creative in this time to see how they can better themselves or at least create some type of upward trajectory from it.
Got it. Yes, all those things are very, very tough, but it's good on us that we're trying, right? We're past the baking banana bread phase, so we need to get into other things. Now, people I think are really going to love this question because they always want to get right into the mind of an entrepreneur. What motivates you? include anything that that you follow. Shane, you shared Lunch Club earlier. If there's anywhere that you look for motivation, anything around motivation, share with us. Shane?
So if you really want the true answer, it's for me, it's what motivates me is impatience and rage at this point. So for me, a lot of the stuff that came out with the racial divide that we now have brought back a lot of the things that fueled my fire to leave where I grew up to come to a more diverse place. But then carrying that through the business of Carbon is how do we actually embolden the underserved and give people a chance that really want to do something better and elevate. So even when I started Carbon, one program I put in place, because I never had it growing up in Indiana, was that I wanted to create an environment where we can actually integrate students year round. So anyone who wants a chance to work on real life, finance, business, marketing, hardcore operations, they have the ability to do so. So it started out more on a volunteer basis where students could come on board. We kind of formalized that. I had a friend of mine pass away that we actually ended up creating a fellowship in his honor. So we've been able to actually put a little program around this student activity. So over the summer, we had 30 summer associates across only 5 partners. So it was a lot of workload, but it was an immense opportunity to advance our portfolio, but then really give these students a chance to rise above and have something differentiated. And to date, over the last couple of years, we now have about 10 students have gotten their dream job coming out of college because of the Carbon story and the experience. So I know that works. And like I said, as much as I say humans are the virus, but we're also the cure at the same time. And that's a rare thing, right? Where you get to choose which one you want to be, but you have to be aware of certain things before you can make that decision. So really just basically as part of our DNA is how we put that best foot forward, but create change from the inside out. That's kind of what I would have to say.
Okay. Justin, motivation, where does it come from?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the idea of building something big and kind of realizing this opportunity and having an impact while doing so. One of my favorite parts and kind of my day-to-day role is getting to talk with our students on our customer support channels. And while majority of this is just kind of questions about their application or I and what they've done and what they're looking to do with their future. And so it's hearing stories like one student who lost both of their parents when they were just 10 years old, took care of their brother since then, and they've now gone on to get their registered nursing degree, graduate, and they're working as a nurse in a hospital now. And their passion was kind of stemmed from that loss at a young age. And I think being able to play a small part in their journey and helping them realize that dream has been really impactful. My dad is an entrepreneur. So growing up, I was really exposed to kind of what it's like to run a business. And so in high school, I started watching, a lot of videos of entrepreneurs I look up to and admire. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter and Square, Evan Spiegel at Snapchat, Brian Chesky at Airbnb. And I think learning a lot from them and seeing kind of the impact that they were able to have on people really inspired me to go out and build something big and kind of realize the same opportunity that they did. And so I think for anybody that's looking for motivation to build something or start out, I would just kind of find, that one person that or multiple people that you can look up to that, makes you realize that they also started from where you are. And everybody has to start somewhere. And the hardest part is just getting started and taking that first step. And after that, you just have to, put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
It's so true. You have to just forge ahead with it. If you're going to do it, do it. Here's flipping the script a little bit. If you weren't an entrepreneur, what would you be? I would be a race car driver. How about you guys? Justin?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I was just thinking about this the other day.
Does Shane, do you have anything in your back pocket?
Yeah, let's see what Shane has.
What's funny, the truth of it is I don't view myself as an entrepreneur because I'm doing this out of sheer necessity. like I've had startups before, and I never liked it because I couldn't care about one thing. But I found a way through this that my passion has been to change a lot of things and come up with a portfolio approach. So in that sense, I am focusing on something that really moves me. I mean, if I weren't doing this, I don't know, I still thrive around curiosity and intellect, but I'm also an adrenaline junkie. So I do like driving fast. I'm very much a motorhead. I like driving fast cars, fast motorcycles. I would say for me, so one of my favorite things to do is do very long cross-country motorcycle trips. So I would literally tour the world on a motorcycle and go every country.
There you go. Someone else who likes to go fast. Justin, did you come up with anything?
Yeah, I did. I think it would be hard for me to do something that wasn't creative or building something in some way, whether that's being like a journalist focused around tech, or whether that's being a designer at a tech company. I get a lot of joy out of building things or making things or writing things that people enjoy and seeing them use those. So I guess that would be my answer, even though they're still a little bit entrepreneurial.
There you go. We don't want to take your eye off the prize of what you're working on, but it's good to know. What are the character traits that make great business people or entrepreneurs succeed or fail? Justin? Sorry, Shane. We can do Shane. I'm really going at random here. Whoever's on my screen.
Justin, go ahead. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest one is really just kind of determination and grit. I think the biggest thing that you can do as an entrepreneur is to just keep going and get back up when you get knocked down. I think that's something that I've been really proud of our team for. Starting a startup is not an easy thing, and you're going to encounter roadblocks, whether it's running out of money or whether it's not being able to grow as fast as you'd like. And I think the important part is to know that everybody has had to go through those challenges, and the important part is just keep going and keep moving. I think the most important part of or the key to building a successful company is really just giving yourself the time to innovate and explore and get to the solution eventually. And so the more effort that you can put in and the more time you can spend kind of dedicating yourself to the problem and continuing to move forward, I think the more likely you are to be successful.
All right, Shane.
So the only precursor I would add to that, because I agree with everything Justin said, is that you have to have undaunted passion for what you're setting out to do. Because of all those roadblocks, because of the adversity, because of the pain in the ass that you're going to go through, you have to care about it. Because if you don't, you are going to stop. It's very easy at some point to walk away, but if it's something that you have to see through no matter what, that is what's going to give you that determination and tenacity to push forward. Because without that, you're going to quit. There'd be no reason to continue. So I would say that's the number one thing for me.
Okay. Best and worst part of your role.
It is the best and worst part. Because everything is on your shoulders, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. But because everything's on your shoulders, you also have the obligation to do what needs to be done, for better or for worse. And as you know, it's always easier to point out the flaws in something else rather than when something's in your own house. I have a bit of that going on now that I need to rectify. And I will. It's just going through the right steps, but it's a hard leap to take sometimes. But I think those are the things, because again, there's nowhere else to point the finger at the end of the day. Yes, you might have co-founders and others, but it's still just a small group. It's not something you can just outsource or walk away from, because it's always going to be facing you until you deal with it.
It's true. So
that'd be my thing.
I can get with that. My answer would have been admin work. Love talking to people, hate everything that comes afterwards. Just what you got for us?
Yeah, I think the best part is kind of seeing people use your product and realizing that impact that you can have on them. And I think that extends even to businesses that aren't impact oriented. I think seeing kind of the broader impact. People think about kind of social networks and kind of the impact that they can have on community or world politics or just entertainment for people. I think can be really special there. And obviously for us, it's saying that we can help people realize their dreams and go and do something bigger than what they thought they had accomplished, or what other companies told them they couldn't do, that we can help them do. And so I get a lot of joy out of just seeing people use our product, hearing their feedback, and seeing what we've kind of helped make possible for them. I think Shane is totally right with kind of the worst part is the buck stops with you. And so if you're in a hard place, there's nobody that, you can't wait for your manager to go and solve it, or, if your team's already tried everything, it's kind of up to you to figure it out. And so I think there have definitely been tough times where you don't have the answer, but you know that you have to be the one to go and get that answer. And that can be obviously really stressful. It'll keep you up at night. But I think it makes it even more rewarding when you figure it out and can move forward.
All right, good tips. I want to end. We're nearing the end here, and I want to end on a very positive note. So think about this: if we were having a glass of champagne 1 year from today, what would we be celebrating? We don't have crystal balls, but what do we see in the future as something great that's going to be worth celebrating 1 year, October 21st, sorry, 2021. Justin.
I think for us, one of our goals is to get to $10 million in origination volume. I think that's a huge impact that we can have. That's 1,000 students that we will have funded and helped put through college. And I think it shows obviously that we're still alive as a company, that we've been able to kind of hire and grow the team to get to that point. Really looking forward to getting to that milestone.
Excellent. Love to hear that. 1,000 and 10 million. Love it. Shane, what do you got?
For us, I think it would be raising our first million of capital to invest and deploy, and really then start deploying that into our active zones in Ghana, Liberia, Guatemala, and low-income U.S. Activity. So I think that would be a huge win. I think that would be worth celebrating. I think it's going to take about a year to do that, and we're ready for it.
All right. Well, cheers in advance, guys, because I can tell that you're on the trajectory and that's going to happen. And thank you very much for joining us on the panel, Doing Well by Doing Good.
Thanks for having us.